she slept beside her bags and woke in a cowboy's arms. The night was colder than she had expected, and the wind cut through the thin jacket she wore like tiny, invisible knives. She hugged her bags tightly, pulling them close to her chest, trying to create some kind of shield against the world. The streetlights flickered weakly, throwing long shadows on the cracked pavement, and every sound, the distant bark of a dog, the occasional whistle of wind, the hum of a far-off truck, made her heart jump. She had never felt so alone in her life. Not really. Not like this. Her journey had not been planned this way. A week ago, she had been somewhere safe, where life seemed predictable, even if it was hard. But life had a way of shifting beneath her feet without warning, and she had learned that lesson too late. She remembered the last moments of that sudden change, a phone call, a door slammed, tears she had tried not to cry, and the realization that there was nowhere she could go tonight. No one waiting for her, no roof to shelter her, no soft bed where she could rest her tired bones, only the street and the cold night air. Sitting on the ground, she tried to make herself small, curling around her bags as if they could hold her together. Each breath came out in little clouds that quickly vanished into the darkness. She looked at her bags and thought about what she carried: clothes, a few personal items, papers that mattered, and memories she couldn't afford to lose. The weight of it all was almost too much, and yet, even in her exhaustion, she refused to let go. These bags were her lifeline. If she lost them, she would feel completely lost. Time moved slowly. She tried to focus on the small things around her: the gentle sway of the fence posts near the edge of the road, the faint smell of hay drifting from a nearby ranch, the sound of her own heartbeat. Everything seemed magnified in the stillness. She realized she hadn't eaten all day, hadn't drunk much water either, and the hunger made her stomach ache. But she was too tired to care. The thought of moving, even to find food or warmth, felt impossible. She simply sat there, holding on to her bags, and let the night surround her. Memories began to creep in, uninvited. Faces of people she had loved, conversations that ended in misunderstandings, promises that had been broken. All of it weighed on her. She tried to push them away, to focus on the present, but her mind refused to obey. She wondered how she had come to this point, sitting alone beside her bags in the middle of a silent night, not knowing what the next hour would bring. Fear mixed with exhaustion, creating a heavy, almost physical pressure on her chest. She closed her eyes for a moment, and the tears she had tried so hard to hold back slipped quietly down her cheeks. She had always considered herself independent, someone who could face challenges without asking for help. But tonight, independence felt like a burden, a reminder that she had nowhere to turn. She longed for someone to notice, someone to offer kindness without judgment, but she knew that hope was dangerous. She had been let down before, and the world had taught her that asking for help could sometimes be as frightening as the danger itself. Still, she stayed where she was, curled around her bags, hoping against hope that the night would pass without incident. Hours passed slowly. She shivered with cold, rubbing her arms to keep some warmth in her body. Her legs ached from sitting on the hard ground, and her eyes burned from holding back sleep. She told herself to stay awake, that she couldn't fall asleep out here, that the street was no place for a person to rest their head. But her body betrayed her. Her eyelids grew heavy, and finally, with a sigh she didn't even notice, she drifted into an uneasy sleep. Even in sleep, the world did not let her rest fully. Dreams of running, of being chased, of never finding a safe place to belong visited her. She stirred, shivered, and muttered softly to herself, waking briefly to check her bags to make sure they were still there. Each time she found them exactly where she had left them, and she relaxed for a moment before exhaustion pulled her under again. Her body needed rest, even if her mind resisted it. In the quiet of the night, there were tiny signs of life all around her that she had not noticed at first. The soft rustle of leaves, the distant cry of a coyote, the whisper of the wind through the grass. These sounds became her companions, keeping her awake yet oddly comforting. She realized that even in loneliness, the world continued, and in that continuity she found a small spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, the night would end, and with the morning light, something could change. She had never spent a night like this before. In her memory, nights were for home, for safety, for the warmth of family or friends. This night was different. It tested her, pushed her to her limits, and reminded her that the world could be harsh. Yet, deep inside, a small flame of resilience glowed. She refused to let despair win completely. She would survive this night, somehow. She didn't know how yet, but she believed she could. As the hours crept toward dawn, she shifted her position slightly, trying to ease the numbness in her limbs. She whispered quietly to herself, telling stories in her mind, imagining a better future, remembering moments of kindness she had received in the past. Each memory, each imagined scenario, became a thread of comfort in the cold, lonely night. She reminded herself that she was stronger than she felt, that she had faced challenges before, and that somehow she would face this one too. The first hints of light began to touch the sky, pale and fragile, but enough to signal that the night was ending. She opened her eyes slowly and looked around, realizing that she had made it through the darkest hours. Her body ached, her clothes were damp with dew, and she was hungry, but she was still here. She still had her bags, and she still had a small, unshakable sense of hope. For the first time that night, she allowed herself a small smile, fragile but real. Somewhere nearby, a faint sound of footsteps reached her ears. She froze, unsure if it was a threat or simply the start of a new day. Her heart raced, but she held on to her bags tightly, ready for whatever might come. She realized that while she had been alone all night, the world was waking up around her, and with that awakening came possibilities she had not dared to imagine while the darkness held her in its grip. For hours she had endured cold, fear, and exhaustion. Yet here she was, still clinging to her small belongings, still holding on to the tiniest spark of hope. That night, beside her bags on the cold ground, she had faced the harshness of life in its rawest form. And while she did not know what the next day would bring, she knew one thing clearly. She had survived, and somehow survival itself felt like a small victory. The sun was only just beginning to rise when the cowboy first noticed her. He was already awake, preparing for the day's work on the ranch. His boots made soft sounds on the wooden porch as he stepped outside, carrying a mug of coffee that steamed in the cool morning air. The sky was still painted with the last shades of night, but the world was slowly waking up. He had lived on this land for many years. The ranch was not huge, but it was enough to keep him busy. He knew every fence, every path, every small turn in the road that led to the pasture. He was used to the quiet mornings, the sound of horses breathing, and the smell of fresh hay. But this morning, something felt different. The air seemed heavier, like the land itself was holding a secret. He walked to the edge of the property, where a small road ran past the ranch. He often checked the area, making sure no one had wandered too close to the fences or left anything behind. That was when he saw her. She was sitting on the ground, huddled beside her bags, her body curled in a way that made him realize She had been trying to protect herself from the cold. Her face looked tired and her clothes were damp from the night. She looked like someone who had been through a long, hard struggle. For a moment, he did not move. He stood quietly watching her from a distance. He had learned long ago not to rush into situations without thinking. People could be dangerous, or they could be scared. He had seen both. He knew that approaching too quickly might scare her or make her feel threatened, so he stayed still, trying to understand what he was seeing. The cowboy took a slow sip of his coffee, and he felt a strange mix of emotions. He felt concern, yes, but also a kind of sadness. He had seen people pass through the area before, travelers who had lost their way or had no place to go, but he had never seen anyone sleeping on the ground like this. He wondered what her story was and why she had ended up here. He looked around, checking the area for any signs of danger. There were no cars nearby, no other people, and no obvious reason why she would be here. It was a quiet road, far from the town. He knew the nearest bus stop was a little farther down the road, but still, it was not a place where someone should be alone at night. The cowboy set his mug down on the fence post. He took a deep breath and made a decision. He would not ignore her. He could not pretend he had not seen her. He knew that if he left, she would still be here, alone and vulnerable, and if something bad happened, he would never forgive himself for not doing anything. But he also knew that he had to be careful. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small whistle he kept for emergencies. He blew it once, a short, sharp sound that echoed across the quiet land. It was a signal to anyone nearby, but he did not expect anyone else to hear it. It was more for himself, a way to feel ready. Then he walked slowly toward her, keeping his hands visible and calm. He did not want to scare her. He kept his voice soft, speaking gently as he approached. "Hey," he said. "You okay?" The woman stirred, her eyes blinking open slowly. For a moment, she looked confused, as if she did not understand where she was. Her eyes searched the area, and when she saw the cowboy, she flinched. Her body tensed, and she clutched her bags tighter. Her fear was clear. She had been alone all night, and now a stranger was standing over her. The cowboy stopped a few steps away, giving her space. He raised his hands slightly to show he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to make sure you're safe." She stared at him for a moment, unsure whether to trust him. Her mind raced, thinking of all the warnings she had heard growing up. People could be dangerous.
Men could be cruel. She had heard stories.
She had been told to stay away from strangers, but the look in his eyes was different. He did not look angry or threatening. He looked worried. The cowboy noticed her hesitation. He kept his voice calm and steady. "Do you need help?" he asked. "You look like you've been here all night." She hesitated again, then slowly nodded. Her voice came out quiet, almost shaky. I don't have anywhere to go," she said. "I missed the last bus, and I didn't know what to do." The cowboy listened carefully. He could hear the fear in her voice, but he could also hear something else, strength. She had made it through the night. She had survived. That meant something. He looked around again, then back at her. "Come on," he said. "You can sit in the shade over there. It's not far from my house." She shook her head, unsure. "I don't want to be a problem," she said softly. "You're not a problem," he replied. "You're a person, and I can't leave you out here." He stepped a little closer, but still kept a safe distance. He pointed toward the shade of a tree near the fence. You can stay there while I go get you something warm, he said. I'll be right back. The woman hesitated, but the exhaustion in her eyes told him she was running out of options. She slowly stood up, holding her bags tightly, and walked toward the shade. Her steps were slow and careful, like someone who had been hurt before and did not want to fall again. As she moved, the cowboy watched her closely. He saw how she looked at her surroundings, how she scanned the area for danger. He understood. When you have been alone for too long, you learn to always watch for threats. The cowboy walked back toward his ranch house, feeling a strange heaviness in his chest. He had expected to feel relief after leaving her in the shade, but instead, he felt more worried. He wondered if he should call someone, if he should contact the local authorities, but he also knew that sometimes help from strangers can feel like a threat, and he didn't want to scare her further. He stepped inside the house and quickly made a small plan. He grabbed a warm jacket and some clean towels. He filled a cup with water and added a little sugar to it, hoping it would help her feel stronger. He also prepared a simple breakfast, some bread, eggs, and a warm drink. It was not much, but it was something. Then he went back outside, carrying everything carefully. He did not want to make sudden movements that might startle her. When he reached her, he set the items down on a small rock near her. "Here," he said softly. "Take this. You look like you need it." She looked at the food and water, then back at him. She hesitated, unsure if she should accept. Her pride made her want to refuse, but her hunger and cold made her accept. "Thank you," she whispered. The cowboy nodded, not saying much. He knew that words could sometimes make people feel uncomfortable. He simply watched her as she ate, making sure she was okay. He could see her body slowly relax as she began to feel warmth again. The color returned to her cheeks, and her eyes stopped looking so frightened. As she ate, the cowboy noticed something else. Her hands were shaking slightly, and her eyes kept looking around, as if she was still expecting danger. He understood. When someone has been hurt before, they learn to be ready for pain at any moment. He sat down on the ground nearby, keeping a respectful distance. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he said gently. "I'm not going to hurt you." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I'm sorry," she said. I've been through a lot." The cowboy nodded, understanding. "I know," he said. "You don't have to explain. Just take your time." They sat in silence for a while. The morning grew brighter, and the ranch began to wake up. The sound of horses moving in the stable, the distant clucking of chickens, and the soft noise of the wind through the trees filled the air. The woman listened carefully, taking in each sound, as if trying to remember what normal life felt like. For the first time in a long time, she felt a small sense of peace. It was not a complete peace. She still felt scared, still felt uncertain, but she felt a small relief that someone had noticed her and cared enough to help. The cowboy watched her, feeling a mix of emotions. He had always lived a quiet life, focusing on his work and staying to himself. He had never expected to find someone like this on his land. He did not know her story, and he did not want to push her into sharing it. But he also knew that she needed help, and he was willing to give it. After a while, he stood up. "I'm going to check on the animals," he said. "But I'll be back. If you need anything, just call my name." The woman nodded. She watched him walk away, then sat quietly, holding her bags close again. But this time, she felt something different. She felt like she was not completely alone. Someone had noticed her. Someone had chosen to help. The cowboy walked back toward the ranch, thinking about the day ahead. He wondered if he should offer her a place to stay, or if that would be too much, too soon. He decided to wait. He would let her feel safe first, and then he would offer more. He did not know what the future would bring, but he knew one thing. He would not forget the woman who had slept beside her bags, and he would do everything he could to make sure she was safe. She woke up slowly, not fully sure where she was at first. Her body felt warm, and the morning sun had already begun to rise higher in the sky. The cold from the night was gone, replaced by the soft warmth of daylight. Her eyes opened and she blinked, trying to remember the last thing she had seen. For a moment, she could not remember how she had ended up here. The memory of the night seemed like a distant dream. She sat up carefully, feeling the ground beneath her. Her body felt sore, but the pain was not as sharp as it had been earlier. She looked around and saw the ranch, the fence, and the trees. She saw the small house in the distance, and she realized that she was not alone anymore. She was safe. For a moment, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. Then, quickly, the fear returned. She remembered the night, the darkness, the loneliness. She remembered being alone and scared. She looked toward the direction of the house, trying to see if anyone was there. She didn't want to be surprised again. As she sat there, she noticed a figure walking toward her. It was the cowboy. He was holding a small towel and a bottle of water. He walked slowly, as if he didn't want to startle her. His face looked calm, but his eyes showed concern. She could tell he had been thinking about her since the moment he left. When he reached her, he stopped a few steps away and spoke gently. "Good morning," he said. "How are you feeling?" She swallowed hard, not sure how to answer. She still felt nervous, but she also felt grateful. She was not sure how to explain that gratitude. She simply nodded. "I'm okay," she said quietly. "Thank you for helping me." The cowboy nodded. He didn't speak too much, but he wanted her to feel comfortable. He placed the towel and water near her, and then he sat down at a safe distance. "You look tired," he said. "You should rest more if you need to." She looked at the towel and water. Her hands were still shaking slightly, and she realized she was still scared. The fear had not completely left her, but the warmth in the air and the gentle morning sounds helped her feel a little more relaxed. She reached for the water and took a small sip. The cool water felt refreshing. She could feel the dryness in her throat slowly easing. She held the bottle carefully, as if it were something precious. She had not realized how much she needed water until she had it. The cowboy watched her for a moment, then spoke again. "You don't have to stay out here," he said. "If you want, you can come inside the house. It's warm and safe." She looked at him, surprised. She did not expect him to offer that. She had been alone for so long that the idea of entering someone else's home felt strange. She felt like she would be invading his space. She felt like she did not deserve it. But the thought of staying outside, even for a little longer, felt unbearable. She felt the sun on her face and realized that she was still weak. She needed a place to rest, a place to breathe without fear. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay," she said, "but I don't want to cause trouble." "You're not causing trouble," the cowboy replied. "You're just tired, that's all." He stood up and offered his hand. She looked at his hand for a moment, then slowly took it. His grip was firm but gentle. She stood up, holding her bags tightly. She followed him, walking slowly toward the house. As they walked, she noticed the details of the ranch, the horses in the field, the birds flying in the sky, the smell of fresh grass. It was peaceful, and it made her feel calmer. She realized that this place was very different from the city where she had lived before. Here, the world seemed slower and simpler. They entered the house, and she was surprised by how clean and simple it was. There were no fancy decorations or expensive furniture. Everything looked practical and useful. The air inside felt warm and comforting. The cowboy led her to a small room with a bed and a chair. He set her bags down carefully and told her to rest. "You can stay here as long as you need," he said. "I'll be outside working, but I'll check on you." She looked at the bed and felt her eyes fill with tears again. She had not expected kindness like this. She had expected judgment or anger or rejection, but instead, she found someone who simply wanted to help. "Thank you," she said again, her voice shaking. The cowboy nodded and left the room. She heard the door close softly behind him. For a moment, she was alone again. But this time it felt different. It did not feel like loneliness. It felt like peace. She sat on the bed and took a deep breath. She closed her eyes and tried to let herself relax. She had been holding her breath for so long that she did not even realize it. Her body began to loosen and the tension in her shoulders eased. She thought about the cowboy. She wondered why he had helped her. She wondered if he had ever met someone like her before. She wondered if he had a family or if he lived alone. She wondered what his life was like. She realized that she didn't even know his name. She had been so focused on surviving that she had not asked, but she felt that the name did not matter right now. What mattered was that he had shown her kindness when she needed it most. She sat quietly for a while, listening to the sounds outside. She could hear the horses, the wind, and the quiet noise of the ranch. It felt calm, almost like a lullaby. She felt herself drifting into sleep again, but this time it was a peaceful sleep. When she woke up later, the sun was higher in the sky. She looked around the room and saw that it was bright and warm. She felt stronger than before. She got up slowly and walked to the window. She looked outside and saw the cowboy working in the field. He was moving slowly, but he seemed focused. She watched him for a moment, then looked away. She felt a strange emotion inside her, gratitude mixed with something she didn't understand. She sat back on the bed and thought about what she should do next. She knew she could not stay here forever. She needed to find a way to move forward, to rebuild her life. But for the first time, she felt like maybe she could. She opened her bag and looked through her things. She had a few small items, but nothing that could help her much. She had no money, no phone, and no way to contact anyone. She felt a small wave of panic again, but she pushed it away. She decided to focus on what she had now: safety, warmth, and a person who had shown her kindness. She heard a knock on the door. She quickly stood up, unsure who it could be. She walked to the door and opened it slowly. The cowboy stood there, holding a small plate of food and a glass of water. "Here," he said, "eat something. You need strength." She looked at the food and felt her stomach rumble. She realized she had not eaten much in the last day. Her body needed energy. She nodded and took the plate. "Thank you," she said softly. The cowboy nodded and stepped aside so she could sit down at the small table in the room. She ate slowly, tasting each bite. The food was simple, but it tasted like comfort. She felt her body begin to warm from the inside. The cowboy watched her eat for a moment, then spoke again. "Do you want to talk?" he asked gently. "You don't have to, but if you want, I'm here." She looked up at him. She hesitated. She had spent so long hiding her feelings that it felt strange to speak them out loud. But she also felt a desire to share, to release some of the pain she had been holding. "I don't know what to do," she said. "I'm scared. I don't have anywhere to go." The cowboy nodded. He listened carefully, not interrupting. He waited until she finished. "Okay," he said quietly. We will figure it out together." Those words surprised her. She had not expected someone to say that. She had expected to be told to leave, to find her own way, to deal with her problems alone. But instead, he offered help. He offered support. She felt her eyes fill with tears again, but this time, they were not only tears of sadness, they were tears of relief. She felt a weight lift from her shoulders, even if only a little. For the first time in a long time, she felt like someone cared, and that care, simple as it was, began to change her. The sun climbed higher, and the ranch began to feel alive. The horses moved slowly in the pasture, their coats shining in the sunlight. The birds chirped loudly, and the wind carried the fresh smell of grass and earth. It was a different kind of world than the one she had left behind. The city had been loud, crowded, and always rushing. Here, everything felt slower, calmer, and more natural. She woke up early that morning, feeling more rested than she had in days. She looked around the room and saw the simple furniture, the clean bed, and the small window that showed the ranch outside. She felt a small sense of peace. For the first time in a long time, she did not feel the heavy weight of fear pressing down on her. She got up and washed her face with the towel the cowboy had given her. The water felt cold and refreshing. She looked at herself in the small mirror hanging on the wall. Her eyes looked tired, but they also looked clearer. She could see a small spark of hope in them, something she had not seen in a long time. She walked out of the room and found the cowboy already outside, working near the barn. He looked up when he saw her and nodded. "Morning," he said. "Morning," she replied, her voice soft. He walked closer and handed her a small bowl of oatmeal. It was warm and it smelled good. She smiled slightly, grateful for the simple food. "Eat," he said. "You need strength." She took the bowl and sat on a bench near the barn. She ate slowly, enjoying the warmth of the food. She felt the energy return to her body. She looked around and noticed the way the ranch worked. Everything had a purpose. Everything had a rhythm. The cowboy watched her quietly. He did not rush her or push her. He understood that she needed time. She had been through a lot, and he wanted to give her the space to heal. After she finished eating, she looked at him and asked a question that had been on her mind. "Why did you help me?" she asked. The cowboy paused for a moment. He looked down at the ground, thinking. Then he looked back up at her. "Because I saw you," he said simply, "and I knew you were in trouble. No one deserves to sleep outside alone." She listened carefully. His words were simple, but they carried weight. It was the first time someone had spoken to her without judgment. It was the first time someone had shown her kindness without asking for anything in return. She felt a small warmth in her heart. She wanted to say more, but the words felt stuck in her throat. Instead, she nodded and said, "Thank you." He nodded in return. For the rest of the morning, she helped around the ranch. It was not much, but it was something. She carried small buckets of water, fed the chickens, and helped clean the barn. The cowboy showed her how to do things gently and carefully. He did not treat her like she was weak. He treated her like a person who needed time and support. As she worked, she noticed how the ranch felt like a family. Even though the cowboy lived alone, the animals seemed to bring life into the place. The horses nuzzled her hand, the chickens clucked around her feet, and the dogs wagged their tails. She smiled for the first time in days. She realized that she had missed simple things. She had missed the feeling of being useful, of having a task to do, and of being part of something. Her life in the city had been busy, but it had also been empty in many ways. Here, everything mattered. Every task had meaning. After lunch, the cowboy sat with her on the porch, and they talked. The sun was warm and the breeze was gentle. The cowboy spoke about his life on the ranch, about the work, the seasons, and the quiet days. He told her about the animals and about the way he found peace in the routine. She listened carefully, feeling a sense of calm. She realized that his life was not perfect. He had his own struggles and his own loneliness, but he had found a way to keep going. He had found a place where he belonged. She began to open up slowly. She told him about her life, but she did not go into too much detail. She explained that she had been traveling and that she had nowhere to go. She did not tell him everything, but she told him enough to show him that she was not lying. The cowboy listened without interrupting. He did not ask too many questions. He knew that she would share when she was ready. When she finished, the cowboy nodded, slowly. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," he said. "But you're safe now." She looked down at her hands. She felt a small tear roll down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away. She did not want to show too much emotion. She was afraid that if she cried too much, she would fall apart. The cowboy noticed her reaction and spoke softly. "It's okay to feel," he said. "You don't have to hide your feelings here." She looked up at him, surprised. His words made her feel safe again. She realized that she did not have to be strong all the time. She could be human. She took a deep breath and nodded. "Thank you," she said again. The cowboy smiled slightly. It was a small smile, but it was warm. As the day went on, they worked together on small tasks. They repaired a broken fence, cleaned the stable, and gathered firewood. The work was simple, but it brought a sense of normalcy to her life. She felt like she was learning something new. She felt like she was slowly building a new routine. During a quiet moment, the cowboy asked her if she wanted to stay longer. "You don't have to leave today," he said. "If you want, you can stay for a while. I can help you figure out what to do next." She was surprised by his offer. She had expected him to help her for a little while and then ask her to move on. But he was offering more. He was offering a chance to start over. She looked at him carefully, thinking. She felt the weight of the decision. She did not want to stay forever, but she also did not want to go back to a life where she would be alone again. She wanted to feel safe. She wanted to feel like she belonged. She took a deep breath and nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "I'll stay for a while." The cowboy nodded, and his face softened. "Good," he said. "We'll take it day by day." That night they sat by the small fire outside the house. The sky was clear and the stars were bright. The air was cool, and the sound of the night felt peaceful. They did not speak much. They simply sat together, sharing the quiet. She looked at the cowboy and realized that she was starting to trust him. She was starting to believe that there were still good people in the world. She felt a small hope that maybe, just maybe, her life could change for the better. The cowboy looked at her and saw the change too. He could see the fear slowly leaving her eyes. He could see the small spark of hope growing. He felt a sense of peace in knowing that he had helped someone in need. As the fire burned low, the woman leaned back and closed her eyes. She felt safe. She felt cared for. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she belonged somewhere. And in that moment, she realized that this ranch was no longer just a place she was staying. It was becoming a place she could call home. The morning after the fire, the ranch felt quieter than usual. The sun was gentle, and the air smelled like fresh grass and warm earth. The woman woke up, feeling a strange mix of emotions. She was grateful, yes, but she was also nervous. She knew that she could not stay here forever. She had to find a way to move forward with her life. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her bags. They were still there, packed neatly, like they had always been a part of her life. She felt a strange sadness as she looked at them. Her bags were not just bags. They were a symbol of everything she had been through. They represented her past, her pain, and her survival. She stood up and walked to the window. She looked outside and saw the cowboy already working in the field. He was moving slowly, but he looked calm. She watched him for a moment, thinking about how much he had done for her. He had offered her safety, food, and a place to stay. He had not asked for anything in return. He had simply helped. She felt a deep sense of gratitude. She knew she could not repay him with money or gifts. She did not have anything like that. But she wanted to show him that his kindness had made a difference. She wanted to show him that she was not just a person who needed help. She was someone who could be strong again. She decided to start by helping around the ranch more. She wanted to prove that she was not lazy or weak. She wanted to show that she could contribute. She walked outside and greeted him. "Good morning," she said. The cowboy looked up and smiled. "Good morning," he replied. "Did you sleep well?" She nodded. "Yes," she said. "Thank you." He nodded again and handed her a small bucket. "Can you help me with the horses?" he asked. "I need to clean their water troughs." She accepted the bucket and followed him. She worked with him quietly, doing her best to help. She felt a sense of purpose as she moved around the ranch. It was different from the city life she had known. Here, every action mattered. Every small task helped keep the ranch running. As they worked, she noticed the way the cowboy moved. He was careful and calm. He knew what he was doing. She realized that he had spent his life working like this, taking care of the land and the animals. She also realized that he had not always had someone to share his life with. He had been alone for a long time. She felt a small sadness for him. She had been so focused on her own problems that she had not thought about his life. She had not realized that he might also be lonely. She had not realized that his kindness might come from a place of wanting to help someone because he cared. They finished their work and sat down for lunch. The cowboy brought out a simple meal, and they ate quietly. The woman felt comfortable around him now. She no longer felt afraid. She no longer felt like she had to hide. After lunch, they walked together to the edge of the property. The woman had been thinking a lot about her future. She knew she needed to make a plan. She knew she needed to find a way to rebuild her life. She had no money, no job, and no place to stay. But she also knew that she could not stay here forever. She turned to the cowboy and spoke carefully. "I'm thinking about leaving soon," she said. The cowboy looked at her, his face serious. He understood. He had been expecting this moment. He had been hoping she would stay. But he also knew that she needed to find her own path.
"That's okay," he said softly. "You should do what is best for you." She nodded, but her eyes filled with tears.
She did not want to leave him. She had grown attached to the ranch and to the cowboy. She had grown attached to the feeling of safety. But she also knew that she had to be strong. She had to find a way to stand on her own again. She took a deep breath and continued. "I want to thank you," she said. "You saved me. You gave me a place to rest and you treated me like a person. I don't know how to repay you." The cowboy shook his head. "You don't need to repay me," he said. "You just need to be safe." She looked at him and nodded. She wanted to believe him, but she still felt a little unsure. "Will you help me one last time?" she asked. "Can you help me get to a town or a bus station?" The cowboy thought for a moment. Then he nodded. "Of course," he said. "I'll help you. We'll make a plan." They walked back to the house and sat down. The cowboy took out a small map and showed her the nearest town. It was a long drive, but it was possible. He explained how the bus station worked and how she could get help there. He also told her about a small shelter in the town that could help her with food and temporary housing. The woman listened carefully. She felt a mix of hope and fear. She was hopeful because she could finally see a way forward. She was afraid because she did not know what awaited her. She did not know if she would be accepted in the town or if she would face more challenges, but she knew she had to try. The cowboy offered to drive her to the town himself. He did not want her to travel alone. He wanted to make sure she arrived safely. She hesitated for a moment, then agreed. "Thank you," she said. The cowboy nodded. He looked at her with a kind expression. "You're welcome," he said. "Just remember, you don't have to be afraid. You can be strong." The next morning they prepared for the trip. The cowboy packed some food and water for her. He also gave her a small bag of supplies, like a blanket and a few extra clothes. He wanted her to be comfortable and safe. When they were ready, they walked to the truck. The woman held her bags tightly, feeling nervous. She looked at the ranch one last time. She felt a wave of sadness, but she also felt grateful. She knew that this place had changed her life. It had given her hope. The cowboy opened the truck door for her and helped her get inside. He started the engine, and the truck began to move slowly down the road. The woman looked out the window, watching the ranch disappear behind her. She felt tears in her eyes, but she did not wipe them away. She wanted to remember this moment. As they drove, the cowboy spoke softly. "Remember," he said, "you are not alone. If you ever need help again, you can come back. This place will always be here." The woman nodded. She felt a deep sense of gratitude. She felt like she had been given a second chance. When they reached the town, the cowboy dropped her off near the bus station. He gave her a small hug, and she felt his warmth. It was a simple hug, but it meant a lot. It was a sign of trust, and it was a sign of care. "Take care of yourself," he said. "You too," she replied. She watched him drive away, and she felt a new kind of strength inside her. She knew that her life would not be easy, but she also knew that she could survive. She had survived the night. She had survived the fear. She had survived the loneliness. And now she was ready to start again. She walked into the town with her bags, feeling the weight of her past but also the hope of her future. She knew that the road ahead would be hard, but she also knew that she had a new belief inside her, that kindness could change a life. And she would carry that kindness with her forever.